to the Fantasy Football Fanatics podcast with your hosts Griffin Palmer, CJ Hickman, Jason Cabrera, and Ryan Mitchell.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to the show. It is Tuesday, June 19th. This is the Fantasy Football Fanatics podcast, the official podcast of thefantasyfootballfanatics.com. I'm your host, Griffin Palmer, joined by Jason Cabrera. Jason, what's up, buddy?
What is going on, man?
Not much. I'm really hoping that the show works this time because pulling the curtain back here, we've had some serious technical difficulties, some of them self-inflicted, but, you know, it is what it is. Hopefully it works this time. So if you guys are listening to this, I guess that means that it did, and welcome to the show. So today we have a very highly actually requested topic. This is something that was very popular last year that we did, and so we figured let's bring it back, and that is our Contrarian Fantasy Football Strategies. So what we're doing here is we're taking a look at a lot of kind of popular up-and-coming alternate strategies to fantasy football, as opposed to what maybe the norm would be, kind of those philosophies that even we as a show preach almost every single day, and taking a look at them, looking at how viable they are, if they're actually something that you could maybe actually pull off, if it's just complete BS, is someone lying to you. We'll look at quite a few of them today. You can see however many we can get through in the time that we have. And before we get to that, though, make sure you guys subscribe wherever you're listening. We're a year-round show. You can follow us on Twitter at the FF Fanatics. Submit your questions there. We're very good about getting back to you. And join the community. Interact with us. It's a lot of fun. We like to answer questions, hang out with you guys, and should be some news. I think by Friday's show, we'll have news on our Listener League. So, spoiler alert, we're going to have a new system on how to get into the Listener League. So, if you're interested, be here on Friday's show. Also, if you want to support the show.
Hopefully this time they don't kick our butts like they did last year. It was crazy.
I mean, we had a representative in the playoffs. And
we did.
CJ was in the Super Bowl, didn't he? He made it all the way there, right?
He did. Yeah, he made it to the championship, but he lost in the championship.
Yeah, I just don't want to get trolled in the draft again. That was terrible. And CJ didn't help things because CJ is evil, pure evil. And he loves
sure
that
words
position.
have not been spoken.
Yeah.
Yeah.
CJ.
Yeah.
Oh, that was a fun draft for everybody involved but me. Anyway, you can also support the show, help us keep doing what we're doing over at patreon.com/thefantasyfootballfanatic. Should have some very exciting stuff that we're going to reveal over there before we get to the masses as well in the not-too-distant future. So go hang out over there. You won't regret it. And with that, I guess let's move right into the show, and let's get to our top headlines from around the league. Of course, as we've been doing for the last, feels like forever now, the NFL Top 100 happened, and this time it was numbers 20 through 11. So number 20 was Alvin Kamara, running back for the New Orleans Saints, unrated a year ago. I mean, quick, shifty guy, explosive, put up a ton of yardage. Going to have a bigger workload this year. Hard to bring down. Very respected as a rookie. Congratulations, buddy. Number 19, Everson Griffin, defensive end, Minnesota, 95 a year ago. Massive jump here for him.
Man.
I got to tell you, I mean, I know he had a great sack total, which is why he got this far on the list, but he was, for me, very frustrating to own in our IDP league. He would have really boom-bust kind of performances. But
yeah, he was Babe Ruth. He either hit a home run or he struck out.
Yeah, but I mean, when he hit a home run, I mean, he put up a massive performance. I loved having him.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, Everson Griffin, well done. Number 18, Ben Roethlisberger, quarterback, Pittsburgh Steelers, 22 a year ago, so pretty consistent there. Jalen Ramsey, cornerback, Jacksonville Jaguars, unrated a year ago, and I would say well-deserved, getting all the way up here. One of the top young corners in the league at that. Number 16, Khalil Mack, defensive end, Oakland, 5 a year ago. Of course, last year was coming off his defensive player of the year status. He had a pretty close to as good year this past year. So, slight decline was to be expected, but, I mean, well-deserved as well. Number 15, Rob Gronkowski, arguably the best tight end in NFL history. Tight end, of course, for the Patriots, 23 a year ago, so he did better. I think he was a little bit healthier this year, so that helps. Number 14, Calais Campbell, defensive end, Jacksonville Jaguars, 83 a year ago. Man, I'm really sad to see him in Jacksonville because he's just, I feel like, I mean, obviously he's recognized here in the list, but I feel like around the league, a lot of people aren't talking about him because he's just in such a talented, crowded defense, and he really stood out in Arizona. I know you probably feel the same way, but I mean, hey, career year here, so.
Well, I miss him in Arizona. Obviously, he was the centerpiece of our defense. He was fantastic. But you know what? Like you said, I mean, just look at this list. He was 83 last year. He's 14 this year. He's thriving in Jacksonville. I mean, that defense is tailor-made for him. So as much as I miss the guy, I'm happy for him, and he's earning his money.
Or as he has renamed the city, Saxonville. So
yes.
So there's that. Where were we? Oh, yeah. So, number 13, DeAndre Hopkins, unrated a year ago, wide receiver for the Houston Texans. Well-deserved, finally healthy. Number 12, Luke Kuechly, linebacker for Carolina, 20 year ago. Arguably the best linebacker in the NFL. So, I mean, hey, putting together healthy seasons, he is amazing. And a great IDP option as well. And then number 11, Russell Wilson, quarterback, Seattle Seahawks, 24 year ago. Not surprised. He single-handedly put the team on his back yet again, made things happen. So there you go, Russell Wilson. And then we'll have, I guess, our big reveal next week, because I think they spread it out to 2 episodes. Well, they do 5 and 5, but don't they air back-to-back? Isn't it just like a 2-hour thing? I don't remember how they do it, but
I thought it was just one episode for the top 10.
No, I think it was 2. I think they did an hour for 10 through 6, and then another hour or half hour, or maybe it's an hour in total. I don't remember. For the rest,
whatever.
Yeah, whatever it's gonna be. We'll cover whatever's revealed next week. So yeah, let's move on. Quarterback position. Let's see. Indianapolis Colts quarterback Andrew Luck. I swear to God, this is gonna be the last time we talk about this.
No, it's not.
I know. Unless something massively breaking happens, though, I want this to be the last time we talk about it. So Andrew Luck said in a recent interview that, quote, "the pain is gone," end quote, in his throwing shoulder. So obviously, great news. He's throwing footballs. He's throwing now to actually active Colts receivers. And the pain is gone. Andrew Luck back? Yeah? Question mark? I think so. You guys think not. You're waiting to see. I kind of am too, but I'm being more optimistic. I think everything's pointing in the right direction. Everything we're hearing right now, everything now that we're seeing. So I'm assuming Andrew Luck's back, and so I'm going to go ahead and start moving certain players up my board. Eric Ebron, obviously. T.Y. Hilton, uncontestedly getting a big bump here. Players like that. So we'll see. I don't know if you share that sentiment, Jason. Where do you land right now?
I'm a little more cautious, but I am optimistic, because I'm now that's what you wanted to hear. You wanted to hear, okay, he's throwing the football now. Now he's going to start taking the first team reps. He's throwing regular-sized football. This is all good stuff. So I'm keeping my eye on it.
Well, I guess we will see, but it looks promising. We'll know, obviously, by training camp how it's all going to play out. Let's go. Oh, no, wait, a little bit more quarterback news. ESPN's Mike Rodak reports that Buffalo Bills quarterback Nathan Peterman is, quote, "a serious contender," end quote, for the starting quarterback job. So basically what this tells us is we know nothing, and I think that this is mostly fluff. I imagine he's going to end up being third string unless they really want to keep the rookie down, as it were, as most offensive coordinators, head coaches like to do. We'll see. Do you think he has a chance of winning out the starting job with McCown and Allen there?
No.
just no.
Just no.
I mean,
come on. It's Nathan Peterman. I mean, he could be a very good backup. I can't see him as a starter. The only reason I would think that they would make him a starter is if A.J. McCarron is just god-awful, and they don't want to put their rookie in the line of fire while their team is garbage. You know, that young rookie is going to be very, very good down the line as he learns the NFL a little bit more. So they're gonna put him on ice, wrap him in bubble wrap, keep him in a travel trunk or something, and then let Nathan Peterman take all the hits. I can see that happening.
See, for me, this is going to play out one of two ways. And that narrative, I feel, is the obvious one, but I don't feel like it's going to be what actually happens. It's either going to be A.J. McCarron going out there because they paid him all this money this year, or Josh Allen's going to win the job and he's going to go out there. I don't see a way that Nathan Peterman actually starts. I mean, he's a fifth-round quarterback from last year's draft. I'm not saying that that's a knock and that people haven't come out of the fifth round to be amazing starters in this league, but I have a hard time believing he's going to win out the job with the surrounding talent. I think it's going to be muddied, though. We could see some quarterback controversy throughout the year. It's just adding more and more layers to the fact that I really don't want anything to do with the Buffalo Bills offense in fantasy. So, yeah, I'll just leave it there. Let's go to the wide receiver position, where New York Giants wide receiver Odell Beckham Jr. has told reporters that he plans to attend training camp. So that's good news, barring the holdout. Of course, all the news coming from his camp are countering this, saying, well, we don't actually know that yet. But when the player himself is saying he wants to be there, kind of ruins any leverage. The Giants have not actually seemed like they're interested in discussing a new contract with him this year, and then they can, of course, franchise tag him after this year. I mean, they could really push off giving him a new contract for a good while still. So his only option would be then to hold out, which won't help his cause. So there's a lot of narrative surrounding this in both directions, but he's saying he's going to be there. I expect him to be there. I think that this is something that the two sides are going to try and negotiate, but I don't see a contract happening until this time next year, honestly. Do you feel the same, different? How do you think this is going to play out, Jason?
Yeah, I think they're going to wait and see. I mean, he's got some off the field issues. He's got a lot of issues. You don't want your superstar to be somebody that people were thinking might not be on the team next year, and that's what happened this year. There was all these rumors. Is Beckham Jr. going somewhere else? That was crazy. It was nuts. So I think they're going to wait, and they're going to just kind of chill out. And I think that's why Odell Beckham Jr. is going. I think his agent got a hold of him and said, "Hey, go to training camp. Be yourself, be the superstar, and then you're going to get a nice contract."
And stop messing with the kicker's net. Stop it.
And just stay away from the kicker's net. Just stay away. Don't even look at it. Look over there. Yeah.
Let's move on to Oakland, where reportedly the Raiders are fearing an upcoming suspension for their newly acquired wide receiver, Martavis Bryant. That's the extent of the news that we have right now. This is just a little blurb that leaked out there that's been getting a lot of traction. So Martavis Bryant obviously has an extensive history of being suspended. He's missed a whole year in the past. I don't know, obviously, anymore right now, like what the infraction could be, what the suspension therefore might be that goes with it. But generally, these things scale, so there's a potential he might miss a whole nother year or longer. So something to keep an eye on. But I will say that if he's gone, that kind of helps dilute the wide receiver and really the whole pass catching equation in Oakland, because right now obviously it's quite muddled. Jordy Nelson we talk about a lot, obviously Amari Cooper, who's going to be the number one there. Jared Cook is there to catch passes at the tight end position, a plethora of running backs, but there's all these questions with Martavis Bryant being there, Ryan Switzer. They have acquired some new pieces that we're not even talking about pretty regularly. I mean, Seth Roberts is there, a guy that has flashed at times. It's really kind of congested, so if he's gone, I think that gives Jordy Nelson a massive bump, but we just don't know. I mean, have you heard anything else about this, Jason?
I have not heard anything. This is actually the first I've heard of it. It's not good news. Not good news for the Raiders because, again, Jordy Nelson's a giant question mark. We don't know if he's going to be able to compete. Amari Cooper, to me, is not a question mark, but a lot of people are still waiting for something to happen with him. Martavis Bryant, I think, was the most solid piece that they had that they knew for sure could produce. So, yeah, this is not good for them.
So down on the guy that they're building the whole offense around in Amari Cooper.
Yeah.
I mean, look, obviously last year was pretty damning, though all the evidence all the statements and claims that he was playing through grueling injuries last season. We'll see. So yeah, we will keep an eye on the Martavis Bryant situation. Let's go on to the tight end position, where the Indy Stars reporter Stephen Holder reports that Eric Ebron has, quote, been among the most impressive Colts during the offseason program. Yeah!
Did you pay this guy, Griffin?
Did
you pay this man?
Did I pay him? I can plead the fifth, I believe, so I will choose to do so. Look, this is great news. Eric Ebron, I don't want to have to make this argument again, but look, Eric Ebron, it was an incredibly highly touted first-round pick in a draft back in, when was he drafted? He was a 2000 and, was it 14, 15, I think? A couple years back.
It was 15.
Yeah. He didn't really work out incredibly well. He was decent in Detroit, but now he goes to the Indianapolis Colts, where quarterback Andrew Luck, who looks like he should be back and healthy, heavily features his tight ends, especially in the red zone. Eric Ebron is a big-bodied, explosive tight end, and him and Jack Doyle are going to, I think, be sneaky sleepers. Obviously, with both of them there, I don't think that either one of them is safe enough floor to maybe invest draft capital in, but definitely streaming options. And if one of these guys goes down, I think the other one gets a massive boost here. So it's something I'm going to be watching a lot in the preseason, how they use these guys, because Eric Ebron is a much more of a pass-catching tight end than he is a blocker. So I think that it's going to work out well. They want to do 2 tight end sets. And so I really think this offense is going to be T.Y. Hilton, and then it's going to be Eric Ebron and Jack Doyle. Because Ryan Grant, sorry, he's just not, I think, going to be that big of a difference maker on this team. Behind that, what do they have? They have 5th and 6th round rookies that they drafted this year, but they're currently expected to be currently I'm looking at a depth chart which has them 3rd on the list, which behind Chester Rogers and KJ Brent. Then they have Darius Fowden and Deion Kane, which were the rookies. and then a whole plethora of guys behind them even. But, I mean, T.Y. Hilton to me is the only standout. I think he will be the guy that a lot of this is featured through. And then Eric Ebron, Jack Doyle, I think are going to be sneakily heavily used in this offense. Marlon Mack probably getting a lot of dump-offs. We've heard a lot of reports that they want to use Nyheim Hines pretty heavily in this offense as well. Their 4th-round running back they drafted this year. This could be a really weird offense to watch, but I think that when it's all said and done, Eric Ebron, he might be in a situation where if everything falls the right way, he could be looking at double-digit touchdowns this year. Is that outside the range of possibilities for you, Jason?
Yeah, I would think so. He's coming into a new offense where he is not the only pass-catching tight end. He's coming into an offense with a quarterback that we're not sure about yet. He's coming to an offense that has not heavily featured the tight end as much as it's featured the tight end, but not to the point where I think he can sustain 2 top-level tight ends. I think I can't see that many passes going to those 2 guys. Now, granted, they don't have a lot of pass catchers behind, like you said, but I still don't know. I like Eric Ebron to the point where I hope that this is a better fit for him than where he just came from, because as CJ would say, he's been garbage. He just has not been able to produce. He hasn't done anything. I've had him on teams. He's let me down pretty much every year. So is it possible? Sure. Am I going to wait and see that happen? Yes, because I've already blown draft picks and capital on him. I'm not going to do it again until he shows me that he can be good.
I mean, I don't think he hasn't been great. He hasn't lived up to expectation. But, I mean, he's been decently healthy. He's only played 1 full season, but he's played well into the teens. 500 to 700 yards is basically where he's been, which is okay for a tight end and an offense that didn't feature the tight end. His career high is 5 touchdowns, which is obviously the thing that we think needs improvement. But, I mean, he's a pretty big guy. He's got really good hands. He did have a lot of drops last year. I think that in this offense, which Andrew Luck loves his tight ends. I don't have the statistical breakdown in front of me. I had it, but I think I exited out at some point. I can't find it. Where it was talking about how heavily he features his tight ends, especially in the red zone. I mean, Eric Ebron could be just one of those super sneaky sleeper tight ends. A post-hype sleeper at that, because he's been hyped up so much in years past. And yeah, I agree, on a new team with a new system and with a quarterback who hasn't worked with yet, that's all scary stuff. But, I mean, I think end of the day in the red zone, they're going to run some pretty simple plays, 2 tight end sets, and Eric Ebron could be a big beneficiary. I think it's a risk, but to me, maybe late round or streaming, a risk worth taking. If I'm in a 2 tight end league, for instance, I'm probably going to snatch this guy up for sure, just maybe even stash him, because I think that he could have that opportunity. This is league dependent. Obviously, if you're in a standard league, a completely standard redraft, probably wait and see, just have him out there on the waiver wire. But, league dependent, I wouldn't mind stashing him in a big or deeper league. So we'll see. Obviously, a lot to be seen. But this offense has sustained multiple tight ends that have been really, really bad when exposed with other teams. I mean, just look at Kobe Fleener, for instance. Dwayne Allen. Both these guys were viable fantasy tight ends with Andrew Luck. They went to other systems and other places with things that seemed to be really good situations at that, and both of them failed miserably, flamed out almost instantly. So I think that Andrew Luck is just kind of a tight end whisperer. So we'll see. Some other news. Dallas Cowboys defensive end Michael Irvin has yet again been suspended for 4 games, the first 4 games of the season.
That would be David Irving.
What did I say?
You said Michael Irvin.
Ooh, Michael Irvin.
There's a lot wrong with that.
That's another Cowboy.
Dallas is the only thing you got right.
I know, another Cowboy. Yeah, sorry. Sorry. David Irving, yes, has been suspended. Good catch there. Been suspended.
This is great.
Yes.
All the Dallas fans are now just angry. They're just mad.
I don't think we have any Dallas fans, thanks to CJ. But
you don't think so?
I like to think we do. We actually have a decent amount of people who download from the state of Texas, but maybe they're all Texans fans the way CJ talks about the Cowboys.
Yeah, that's possible.
If you're a Cowboys fan, rise up. Send a message. Not angry at me. Just let me know. I want to know that you're out there listening. But yes, David Irving, thank you, has been suspended the first 4 games for violating the league's policy on substance abuse. Now, this is the 2nd year in a row he's been suspended for the first 4 games. Oh, holy inconsistency. That's not helping a team that needs some consistency. They need their talented playmakers playing. So yeah, if you're in IDP leagues, I would look elsewhere, and we'll just leave it at that. With that, let's get to why everybody's here. Our topic of the day are Contrarian Fantasy Football Strategies. Now, we each put a couple of them up here. I mean, there's a lot more to get to, but we're going to try and keep this to some of the ones that we hear the most. So, Jason, do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
Sure, I'll go first. I'll use one that I've spoken of before, and that is tight ends. We were just talking about Eric Ebron, so that's a decent little segue. You want to draft a high-level tight end. This isn't one of those positions where you can pick and choose, and I know that Griffin will tell you can stream the tight end position,
but you can.
You really just can't. It's so difficult to do that. In 2016, there was 50 points between the first and the 12th tight end overall. I mean, and when you're talking tight end, that's a lot of points, because tight ends do not score a lot of points as it is. So the scarcity at the position is tough. Now, there is, as I wrote an article a while back saying that there is a little bit of a renaissance coming for the tight end position, in my opinion. I think that it's kind of gotten down to the doldrums, to as bad as it's going to get, and we're going to start seeing these tight ends become better. But in the meantime, what I would tell you to do is I would tell you to pick about 5 of your favorite tight ends and make sure you get one of those 5 guys. Because if you try to stream this position and you're not really, really good, you're going to have a real hard time during the season with tight ends. You'll be complaining all season about tight ends. And I have a friend who I'm talking to right now on this show who complains about his tight end position every single year because he tries to stream it, Griffin.
I mean, it's a headache, but I do it successfully. Okay, let me counter it. Look, okay. Shut up. I agree that if you actually hit a home run on one of these truly elite tight ends, they are a difference maker for your team. You talk about how there's about a 50-point difference between that, but I want to point out that simply that's still not a lot of points, because if you so let's say you take out the top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 tight ends, the only ones that even got to triple digits. You know where the first wide receiver, for instance, that didn't make it to triple digits was?
Who's that?
Your wide receiver 38. There's just so much more depth and value at grabbing other positions unless you hit home on one of these guys. Because really, if you hit Gronk or Kelsey last year, you did great. They both got into the 150 range in standard leagues. Then it's a massive drop to even the next guy, Zach Ertz, who was at 128, 114 for Graham, and it just keeps plummeting from there well into the double digits and below. It's just not a very high-scoring position, so it's not something that unless I want it. Well, I mean, that's the thing. I don't want to invest a second, third-round pick into a tight end, a guy who, having a good year in Gronk, 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns, only got me 150 points, which is, really good for the tight end position. But a lot of the guys going that position at the running back and the wide receiver position, guys that you take in that same range, are getting you over 200 points. So it's just one of those things where it just doesn't make sense to invest that capital. And then when you get lower than that, the guys aren't valuable enough to, for me, warrant me drafting them higher than late round, because I'll stream them and get similar results. So I'm again, not to counter your argument, but you're saying this is contrarian.
No, that's fine. That's why we're doing this.
Yeah,
that's why we're doing it.
Yeah, but
look, this is my counter to that, and then I'll leave it at that. At this, yes, there are receivers that are going to score more points. That's just the bottom line. Receivers score more points than tight ends for the most part, except for very few exceptions. But as I said, picking one of those top 5 guys that is going to have a decent floor at that position and get you good weeks, because guess what? Like I said, there's only about 5 of those guys. And if you're in a league that plays with 10 people or 12 people, that's the minority of the tight ends out there. Now you go out and you get yourself a bunch of receivers. That's great. I got 5 great receivers, but I got no decent tight ends. Well, guess what? You got to start a tight end every week.
Yeah,
so
but unless
you got 5 great, hold on, you got 5 great receivers, 3 of which start, and 2 of which are sitting on your bench, not getting you any points, and you got a crap tight end in there that'll get you no points. Yeah, that's all I'm saying.
But my point is that unless you invest a second, third round pick in a tight end, where you're going to get better value from the other positions there, you're not getting that big of a difference. Because I talk about how the masses of tight ends didn't even break triple digits. For the running back position, you also have to go to the strange, very odd, the running back 38 to get to your first one that didn't hit triple digits. So there's what is it? It's over 70 players out there that you can draft that will get you a better point total based on last year's numbers than a high-end tight end will.
Those are guys you're not starting.
But
and I'm not talking about a first or second round pick. I'm not talking about that at all.
But
you can get one of those top 5 guys in middle rounds, and they may not get you triple digits, but they're going to get you more points than the other tight ends that you're playing against, unless you're playing one of those 5 elites.
Yeah.
That's the point I'm making is you don't have to take Gronk or Kelsey.
But
there are about 3 or 4 other guys that are going to be good enough to get you decent floors for a tight end every single week.
But this is my point that I'm making, that you're looking at it as a positional battle, which you have to take into account. I'm looking at it as an overall fantasy production value where you'll make up those points in other places.
Right. But overall, it's not going to do you any good.
I understand.
It's not going to do you any good. You get if you've got 3 starting wide receivers and they're getting you good points, and then you got 2 really good receivers sitting on your bench, is that going to do you any good?
It absolutely will, because these are guys that I'm going to be I'm going to be swapping in and out, bye weeks, plug-ins, injuries. The tight ends, you're going to be swapping these guys out for guys who are going to be getting around the similar production, because the vast majority of tight ends got you in the 60 to 80 point range. That's the vast majority of ones that were streamed and started and played. There's only a handful of guys who broke out, and that was really Gronk, Kelsey, Ertz, and Graham. Other than that, they're all lumped into roughly the same production week in and week out. So unless you invest high on one of these guys, there's no point in really jumping in on any of them. But it is the same, because those are the ones that separate themselves from the pack. And even that wasn't a huge separation from the next guy behind them. So it's a matter of philosophy. It's a matter of the way you look at it. And for me, I'd rather go get an extra 60 points over the course of the season at a backup or a waiver wire running back, which I'm going to be playing pretty consistently, than a 5-point difference from getting a 3-round higher tight end. That's just the way I look at it. It's better value that way. So, but again, this is why it's contrarian strategies, and we don't all do the same things. So, I guess with that, should we just put a pin in that and move on? I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. So we could have an entire show about that because there's so many things that I could say, but I'm not. But if I say it, we're going to be here for another hour. So we'll just move on.
I mean, we have to fill an hour, so
we got a bunch of other strategies on here. Let's move on.
That's true. People would probably be really mad if we spent an entire hour talking about tight ends. So yeah, let's move on. So I'm going to talk about, and this is something that was heavily debated the last couple of seasons, and that is the advantages to taking a wide receiver instead of a running back with a very early pick. And we're talking about like a top 3 pick here. Now, this is different from the strategies that we've been hearing a lot lately of previous seasons: 0 RB, 0 wide receiver, all these things. Those are, man, do we ever tear those apart? But people do them. Are we talking about those today? I didn't see what you guys put.
Yeah, I have 0 wide receivers. So actually a good segue, because you're going to talk about the different one here first.
Okay. And then we can loop in 0 RB while we're at it. But yeah. So I'm just talking about the advantage of burning a top 3 pick with an elite wide receiver instead of an elite running back. Now this, to me, was a strategy that was a lot more viable last season, because last season you were looking at a situation where you were looking at obviously Antonio Brown, the number 1 guy. He went on average with the number 4 pick anyway. And then we were looking at the turnaround, where when you would draft again at the end of the second, you were looking at running backs like Todd Gurley, Leonard Fournette, Isaiah Crowell, Marshawn Lynch, and obviously Lynch didn't pan out. Isaiah Crowell didn't pan out, but going into the season, Kareem Hunt was going there. So these were all guys. Dalvin Cook was going there. All guys that we were really, really excited about, and most of them panned out to be really, really good. So I understood the thought process behind it, and it seemed viable. You get an elite wide receiver, because wide receiver is much deeper, and then you go get 2 higher end running backs, and so you have a real difference maker. Basically, a top 3, one of those elite wide receivers, and then 2 probably low-end running back ones. And that was a really good way, kind of the whole zig when everyone is zagging approach. Now, I firmly then said that I would not do this, because the difference that a Le'Veon Bell, a David Johnson, one of these truly elite Ezekiel Elliott type players makes in the point totals at the end of the year, plus the position scarcity, plus the volatility at the position, you want one of those really, really powerful elite players. So though I understand the argument and I see the merit behind it, I shot it down. And I feel the same way this year, even more so, because though it's really an interesting argument because, for instance, if you go with, say, Antonio Brown, you're looking at Christian McCaffrey, Derrick Henry, Joe Mixon, Jay Ajayi at the 2-3 turn. Not nearly as exciting for me this year as last year, where if you stick to, stay the course, you get your elite running back, you get your Todd Gurley, Le'Veon Bell, David Johnson, Ezekiel Elliott, Saquon Barkley, Alvin Kamara, one of these guys, whoever your preference is, with one of those top 3 picks. You're then at the next turn looking at getting a Keenan Allen, an A.J. Green, a Mike Evans, a Tyreek Hill. To me, that's just so much more exciting. And so I would probably do that. Now, I'm not saying stick to it. Obviously, if you get yourself, say, David Johnson, and then you come back around and you get yourselves, I don't know, maybe a bounce-back Mike Evans or an A.J. Green, that doesn't mean you have to then, with your third-round pick, go get another wide receiver either. You can go get yourself one of these other running backs if you want to fill out that position. That's your team-dependent, how your draft is going. But I'm saying I would much rather have that elite running back, that top-tier guy, because the later-on running back or the later-on wide receiver at the end of the second round, I think the value is higher than the running backs that will be there this year. It's just one of those, again, people zigging when everyone's zagging. You hear this philosophy all the time. If everyone's doing one thing, don't follow the trends, don't follow the runs, go the other way. And that's true in certain instances and cases, especially later in the draft. When you're looking at the elite top-end talent, you have to look at ADPs, you have to look at what your draft is doing, and the elite running backs are so impossible to replace. Unless you hit home with a sleeper or a diamond in the rough type situation, these guys get point totals that nothing else really touches, so you want them on your team. Obviously, David Johnson got hurt. You can't help that. Injuries happen, but you want these guys. So I still stay the course. I get an elite running back with one of my early picks, unless I'm drafting like 7th or 8th, and maybe I'm looking at my second, third tier of running back at that point. If all running backs have gone, then maybe I'll get myself an elite wide receiver, but that's a different conversation altogether because that's a completely different positioning in the draft. Jason, do you have any thoughts on this?
Well, you pretty much bled over into mine, which was 0 wide receiver, which means first 3 to 4 rounds you don't take any wide receivers. You just ignore all the elite guys.
In some
and
cases,
you take as many really,
rounds.
Really good running backs. What's that?
I said in some cases they stand by that you don't grab the position for 5 rounds, which is ludicrous
5
to
rounds,
me.
right?
Holy hell!
So it is a little ridiculous, but yeah, you take running backs in the first 3, at least the first 3, sometimes the first 4, and if you're insane, the first 5 rounds. And now you've got, so you're going to miss out on all the elite wide receivers, but you're going to get some top level running backs. Your running back room is going to destroy everybody. Okay. Now, the good thing about this is we talked about this, I think, a couple shows ago, or even last show. Was it last show? I don't remember.
I don't remember.
I think it was a couple shows ago. The middle rounds 5, 6, 7, 8. These rounds have got some really talented wide receivers in there. They've got some guys that are solid contributors on their team that are going to be very, very good. Okay, so you could possibly do this strategy where you get the good running backs at the top of the draft, and then you wait for a while, and then you start picking up some solid wide receivers. So you've got elite running backs, solid wide receivers. You can win that way. Now, here's the problem. This pigeonholes you into missing out possibly. Because if you say, you know what, I'm just going to take wide receiver, I'm just going to take running backs, and you go, okay, I'm going to take Jay Ajayi right now, and meanwhile you're missing out on a wide receiver that is going to get you more points than Jay Ajayi, then you pigeonhole yourself out of getting a better situation. You could possibly, instead of Jay Ajayi, you could possibly come back around and pick up a rookie like a Ronald Jones that has possible upside. And there was just some news about Ronald Jones recently. They said they were going to try to get him the ball more times than we expected. So that's good. So my point is, while this strategy looks enticing, any kind of strategy like this, where you say, I'm not going to touch wide receivers until the 5th round, that is just not a good way to play. It's not a good way to draft, because when you get in there, you're going to miss out. You could possibly miss out. You need to stay fluid. You need to get your board and trust your board. You're going to hear me say that more and more as we get closer to draft season. Trust your board. Put your board together and put your trust in it.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the thing that makes me laugh, because we hear all these strategies and we generally just shoot them down. Like, guys, be fluid. There's no point in scripting things, because your draft is going to go different than every mock draft you've ever done, because your league mates are not in there with you. Even if you mock draft with your league mates, which is something I don't recommend, because then they'll obviously pick up on maybe some guys you're targeting.
Don't ever do that. Good grief.
Don't do it. I mean, the hardest part about doing this show is that everyone out there knows our honest feelings behind things, and then we do mock draft together, so we know who each other is targeting. And we don't hide these things because we're doing the show for you, the listeners. But, I mean, if you can avoid it, don't ever mock draft with your league, because all that's going to happen is they're going to pick up on what you're doing, your trends, and even if you try other things, you're still going to kind of tip your hat in one way or another. Don't do it.
Yeah,
but
they know your tendencies.
Exactly.
And you know what? There's an old adage in the Army. If you're ever in the military, I was in the Army, I can tell you right now. The old adage goes, no plan survives contact with the enemy.
Exactly.
You can plan all you want. You can come out with all this, I'm going to script it out, and this is exactly who I'm going to take and exactly what spot. Or even worse, if you're in an auction league, this is exactly how much money I'm going to spend on this guy. I won't spend a penny over this amount.
Yeah.
Well, okay, but you don't know that, because when you get in there and stuff starts happening and there's other live people auctioning against you, you don't know where it's going to go. So, yeah, keep fluid. Don't try to stick to some sort of weird scripted strategy. It's not going to work out.
Yeah, I know philosophically it makes sense, and it feels good to have a game plan and a strategy and you know, all these other aspects behind it, but stay fluid, because best laid plans go all wrong within usually the first 4 or 5 picks, because you'll get that one person who jumps in and grabs a quarterback at the end of the first round, and you're like, oh, there goes everything.
When does that happen?
Man, I wish that happened in our leagues.
Guys took 6 quarterbacks or something in our league last year.
My
Good
God.
grief.
Yeah, and you got well, that was in an auction draft, and auction, of course, is something that we're all super passionate about, and I wish we could talk about it more here on the show, and we're going to be doing auction specials hopefully in the next 2 to 3 weeks. I really want to get that in. I freaking love auction and talking about it here. You can hear how excited we get about it, but the same philosophy applies. If you have a budget, you want to stick to that, maybe a little bit stricter than your draft philosophy, but you still have to be fluid. Your team needs, you know, who's out there, who's still available. Well, we won't get into it, but yeah, stay fluid. That's the bottom line. Stay fluid. Don't do one of these crazy scripted strategies.
Right. There's something you said earlier that ticked something in my mind, and I wanted to bring it up real quick and tell you, look,
we're off the rails.
Think about the NFL. We're not off the rails. It's the same thing. No, think about the NFL. Think about the actual NFL draft, and who are the best drafters in the NFL? You know, what teams generally have the best drafts in the NFL year in and year out? With you know, teams like New England, you know, teams like that. And why do they do that? Why do they have those good drafts? Because they stick to what they do. They don't worry about what everybody else is doing. They don't worry about what, you know, all the weird little trends that are going on. They pick the guys they like, and they target those guys, and they go get them. You know, and if they need to move up and move down, they do whatever they need to do. But my point is, like Griffin was saying earlier, if you're trying to be contrarian and you're trying to go zig when everybody else zags and do all this kind of stuff, you can end up outthinking yourself. You can end up thinking yourself into a corner and going, well, none of these wonderful little plans I had worked out. You know, so don't worry about what everyone else is doing during the draft. Stick to your guns. Stick to your board, you know, and don't zig when everyone else is zagging. If it's smart to zig, then zig. If it's smart to zag, then zag. Do what you think is smart, but don't react because others are doing things.
Yeah, you want to start the runs, not follow them.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's a whole nother thing to get into. So
that's a whole other thing. Yeah.
There's just so much we want to talk about in so little time. All right, so with that, let's move on. So you did your second one with 0 wide receiver, so let me do my next one. And that one is a philosophy that you guys hear me harp on, and I stand by, and it's the same stand. Like, I was going to talk about waiting on tight ends, but we covered that already. So I'm going to do the opposite side of things, which is waiting and taking a super late quarterback. I know. Well, Aaron Rodgers is amazing. I know he is. But the thing is, in the third round, that's just not a value I'm willing to invest when there's position scarcity across the board, and quarterbacks are unbelievably easy to stream. You've heard this if you've been with us for any period of time. We give you guys waiver wire streaming options that we recommend every week, starts and sits. And if you followed our start recommendations, our waiver wire options at quarterback, you had the potential of starting the number one quarterback over the course of the entire season. That's how easy it is to stream the position. I forget the number. I think it was 41 quarterbacks put up a top 12 performance last year, and there's only 32 teams in the league, guys. So if you stream matchups, if you stream positions, it's just so easy. Obviously, bad things happen. It doesn't always work out, but generally, it's pretty easy to predict. So I would much rather load up on super elite, hard-to-replace talent in the third round and then the much later rounds, because you see a lot of people draft their quarterbacks. Some of them will reach second round, even in some more veteran leagues. They'll get their Aaron Rodgers. Deshaun Watson's going crazy early. But you'll see, Tom Brady, Drew Brees, Russell Wilson, Wentz, Newton, Garoppolo, Cousins, Goff, all these guys go before you even get to the double-digit rounds. But why? But in the double digits, you can still get quality quarterbacks that you can stream in really good matchups, like a Phillip Rivers, like a Ben Roethlisberger, like Jameis Winston if he has a bounce-back year. I mean, there's so many good quarterbacks out there you can stream and add and drop and play the matchups. It's just so easy. And then you've top-loaded your team and even added some serious depth behind it. It's just one of those things where I understand wanting to have a set-it-and-forget-it mentality, and that is a lot easier if you have one of those elite top-tier starting quarterbacks. But you can replace that value just by putting a little bit of effort into it, and you have a much better starting roster and depth behind it at every other position if you waited quarterback. That's the same reason I waited tight end, because I'd rather have 5 or 6 elite running backs, 5 or 6 higher-end wide receivers, and then just streaming behind it, because those guys are going to give me the floor I need to compete every single week. So that's my thought process, and the discrepancy between points and quarterback is really not that high. They're pretty similar between, say, like the quarterbacks 5 through 12 than it is the running backs 12 through 20. It's a massive gap in production, so it's just easier to replace. I know you don't use this philosophy, Jason, so why don't you weigh in here?
Well, I've used a version of this philosophy recently, and I've tempered a little bit, because I think you go a little overboard with it. You wait until like round 13, 14 to start looking
only
at quarterbacks.
Sometimes.
And stuff like
it's the being fluid thing, though, because if everyone's drafted a quarterback.
Only on days that ended Y.
No, because, again, if people have all drafted their quarterbacks and people are starting to draft backups, yeah, I'll move on it then, because I don't want scraps of scraps. But, I mean, a lot of these guys, right, if I can get 2 or 3 of them, and I'm not going to roster. Obviously, I'm going to only grab one, but if I can get a good one, maybe in a crazy league or a deeper league, maybe a second one, so I'm just good to go. Add, start sit those guys and maybe waiver wire another one. I'm good to go, and I didn't have to invest early round capital in a quarterback, and I'll get similar production as long as I play the matchups. So, but as you're saying, sorry.
That's all right. There is merit to this. Taking a quarterback deep can be good depending on the quarterback you choose. Now, there are some really, really good quarterbacks that are coming up in double-digit rounds. Like I was able to, in every mock draft that I have done so far this year, I have been able to draft either Matt Ryan or Phillip Rivers in round 10 or later. That's phenomenal. I'll take that every single day. If I get to round 10 and Phillip Rivers or Matt Ryan are staring me in the face, I'll take that in a heartbeat. So there are options out there, that you can find. And so I'm not saying wait as long as Griffin would wait. I think that's a little bit too long. I look for more of a sweet spot. I'm looking for value. I'm looking for someone that's like, okay, I can take this guy, because when you start getting into round 10, round 9, round 10, round 11, you're looking at guys for upside now. Now, you're no longer taking your starters. You're no longer taking, your flex positions and that kind of stuff. You're looking for upside, and you've heard us say that a lot. So the guys that are around that area, you can get yourself a really good starting quarterback who's going to get you points week in and week out. Yes, you'll need to stream a little bit, but if you can get one of those top-level guys that you don't have to worry about in basic matchups, that's a good thing. So I kind of agree with Griffin. At the same time, I say around the late mid rounds is when you start looking for quarterbacks, in my opinion.
You again kind of agree with me. It's just one of those things where I would much rather, with the position scarcity, with the injury risk at running back and even at wide receiver, I would much rather take as many early shots at these guys that I know are going to have good floors with a better ceiling potential than having to go for exactly like you were saying, trying to hit a home run late, find a diamond in the rough, one of these guys you hope pan out in the later rounds. Because at that point, I've already got my roster set and my bench is set. So I'm just grabbing my last starters I need to fill in: quarterback, tight end, kicker, defense. So because I have such great quality depth at that point, because again, a lot of these positions are streamable. I'll stream defense, I'll stream quarterback, I'll stream tight end to an extent. Kickers, whatever. Kickers are easy. None of these things are hard to replace or stream, but the running backs, incredibly hard to replace. Obviously, number one wide receivers are guys who are getting large target shares. Not hard to get a guy in an offense who's going to be involved, but hard to get a guy with a good floor. I'll have a lot of depth of that, and that's why I wait. And it's worked out very well for me over the years, I have to say. So, but again, variations in philosophies. I know that my super late quarterback philosophy is contrarian to the masses. The masses go out there, and this is why. ADP, average draft position for mock drafts going on right now as we speak, has Aaron Rodgers going in the 3rd round, which is proof that, again, I'm contrarian here. But I know that a lot of experts around the league and a lot of analysts kind of adopt a philosophy along the same lines as mine. So it's just, do what you're going to do. Enjoy your team, but do whatever makes you that you're comfortable with. But for me, I'm comfortable streaming, and this works incredibly well because I have such good depth. Jason, your next one.
Well, my next one kind of goes contrary to what you just talked about. And again, this is not something that I would necessarily do. It's something I've been testing out recently in mock drafts, and that's when you want to do stuff like this, guys. Test it out. Go into mock drafts, test these little philosophies out, see what kind of team you end up with. Remember, you're drafting against robots most of the time, but I've been testing this one out recently. It's called Stash a Steal and Take a Kicker defense around earlier than normal. So what I've been doing is I'll choose players that I think are being overlooked or not even being drafted or drafted very, very late. I'll grab a top-rated defense or kicker a round or two earlier than I would normally do that. Okay, so I normally I would start looking for kickers and defense in the last 2 or 3 rounds, right?
Yeah.
That's normal. That's the masses do that. Well, I have been toying around, like I said, with now I'm starting to look for the elite defense, the elite kickers, the Justin Tuckers, the Rams, the Jacksonville Jags, in, let's say, the 12th round. Okay. Now, when I say that, I can just hear Griffin sucking through his teeth. I know.
I'm not,
it's early.
because I actually have something I want to say about
mentally
this.
You are. Okay. So grabbing one of these elite, especially the kicker, point scorers for you, okay, earlier than normal, and then going out and grabbing those handcuffed running backs, those promising wide receivers, those guys in the 14th and 15th and 13th round that have extremely high upside, because that's what you're really looking for anyway when you get into those rounds. You're looking for extremely high upside, not necessarily someone who's got that floor, and that's why they dropped as far as they did, pardon the pun, but you want to grab these guys that you have targeted. I've been looking at guys like Frank Gore recently because he's been overlooked, Now he'll probably won't be there when we get to actual draft season, but there are other names out there. So if you listen to us, and we'll tell you who's sleepers and who's guys that could possibly be those guys, you could do this strategy. It might work out for you. And like I said, it's not necessarily a strategy that I'm going to choose, but it is one to keep in mind.
So I agree with you, which I know is kind of crazy. For me, there's just so, like, more than any year I can remember, there's just so much unbelievable depth late in drafts that it's insane. I mean, and there are so many players who aren't even getting drafted that I really want on my fantasy teams. So I agree. Like, I'm maybe not 12th round, but, generally if you're in a 15-round draft, normally they say last 2 rounds, kicker defense. That's what all the analysts tell you. I've been going, a round later. What about the 13th, 14th round? And then 15th round, I grab one of these late upside guys because then I beat the run at kicker. I beat the run at tight end in most cases. I mean, your league, depending. You'll play in casual leagues where kickers will go in the 6th round and you'll just laugh and laugh and laugh. But it happens. It happens a lot. Defense will go in like the 8th or 9th round. I see it happen in mock drafts all the time.
You know what'll annoy me is that it won't be Justin Tucker that'll go in the 6th round. It'll be their team's kicker, And
Jake Elliott in the 6th round.
Take Jake Elliott in the 6th round. Come on.
Oh.
Wow. I love the Bengals. No.
Matt Prater, Chris Boswell, all in the 6th round picks.
Yeah.
Love me some
Boswell.
You'll see it. That's the thing. It'll happen.
Kickers are people too, Griffin.
They are people too. I make this argument, but I mean, it's one of those things where I'd rather get the guy I want, and then I just grab any one of these late round guys because there's so many good upside guys going super late in drafts. I mean, wide receivers like Kenny Golladay, Chris Godwin, who's going undrafted in most cases, both guys that I'm very, very high in. Michael Gallup, a guy who could be the number 1 receiver in Dallas, is going in the late rounds. Running backs like James White, who with the right situation could have a really good year, and other people along those lines. There's just so many people in drafts this year. Frank Gore is going at the end of the drafts, so
it's awesome. I love it.
It's really good. Spencer Ware, who we keep hearing might have a role in the offense. I don't think he will, but I mean, we don't know. He could be involved in the starting rotation. I doubt it, but he could be. So, I mean, these are, of course, all the offseason rumors that we're hearing right now, but that's the thing. It's so deep in fantasy drafts this year that these are the kind of guys that are still available. Now, these are not obviously 2nd, 3rd round picks. There's a reason they're going this late, but the upside is undeniably there. So get your kicker you want, get your defense you want, then grab one of these guys with your final round. When everyone else is grabbing their kicker defense they need, you go grab one of these guys that's slipped, and you've got the guys you want. Get the players you want, the upside, the top tier ones, whatever your approach is, and then fill your last spot with an upside play. Because I mean, odds are that 15th round guy, he's your last pick anyway. He's going to be the first person you add drop when waiver wires clear after week 1 anyway. So It's not a big loss. So take your shots and get the teams you want. I mean, if you're me, I'm going to be ad dropping kickers and defenses anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But I could get an elite unit that could suffice for a while, especially if I look at matchups through the first portion of the season. It's all philosophies, and it's a lot of stuff we won't get into on this show, but everyone has their own approach for kickers and defenses. We are at 50 minutes. I don't think we have enough time to go around again. Do you want to just do one more?
We've done all of mine.
Oh, did we? Oh, we did, because we looped in 0 wide receivers.
Okay. We got one more.
All right, let's do mine. I'll do, because there's a couple, because CJ has a couple on here too I want to talk about. I'll do mine. So drafting rookie-heavy teams. This is contrarian because you'll find that in many cases, especially if you play with casual players, they will only focus on the known commodities. So, of course, that means veterans, the names, the household names, the players that they know, the players they've had in years past. They'll be scared off of any players that they don't know in the rookie class. So in most cases, if it's not one of those guys who's in the first, second round conversation, like they pick up a fantasy football magazine and like, look, a rookie. What is his name? It's Saquon Barkley. Apparently he's first round quality. Maybe I'll grab him. Be really sneaky. Ha ha ha. Beyond that, they generally will stay away from rookies because they don't know anything about them, and that's going to push these guys further down drafts, which is why I think this contrarian strategy is actually quite viable, because you can get some really quality starters in the mid to late rounds that are going to keep slipping down your drafts, especially in casual ones. I mean, and not only that, post-hype sleepers, but I mean, guys with high floors. Like maybe we don't like the ceiling of a Rashad Penny because the Seattle offense is just terrible. Well, I mean, if he gets pushed down far enough, you're looking at a really good volume. Royce Freeman, he's a guy that could slip. Ronald Jones, all these are players that are going to possibly have starting roles, and you could get them in really late in your drafts just because people don't know the first thing about them. Darius Geis. So it's one of those things where I think that, and history is on your side here, by the way. The leading rusher in the NFL the last, I think, 3 seasons has been a rookie, and that's at the running back position. Wide receivers, obviously a little bit more hit and miss, but there have been great wide receivers in great situations that you can do the same philosophy with. So I'm a believer that I don't want to go necessarily all rookie. I want veterans mixed in, but I'm not scared off of having a handful of rookies in there, because if you take my draft philosophy anyway, you're going to have really deep benches, and then you can just add drop if need be. If these guys are bust, then so what? Swap them out. But you'll be able to get them much later in drafts, so the capital won't be lost on them. So that's why I think this is a very kind of cool concept, and one that is, I think, viable, because you're not necessarily falling into position philosophies. It's just ways of getting better value on your team. Jason, what are your thoughts on this?
I really do like this. I subscribe to this, or prescribe to this. Sorry, I don't subscribe to it. That wouldn't make any sense.
It could.
I subscribe to this philosophy quite a bit, and it's because, look, the known commodities you're talking about, the veterans, the guys that are around the spots where you're finding some of these rookies at, you know what you're going to get with these guys most of the time. You kind of already know their floor, you know their ceiling, you've seen what they can do in the NFL. Now, if you're looking at, let's say we're talking about Darius Geis. You brought up Darius Geis. I really like Darius Geis. Guys going around Darius Geis, Derrick Henry, Jay Ajayi, Mark Ingram, Rashad Penny, another rookie, Lamar Miller. Now, we've talked about a lot of these guys, and we've talked about how Ingram is suspended. Okay, Penny's on a bad team as far as the running goes. Lamar Miller, we're not sure what's going to happen with him, possible bust candidate. Jay Ajayi, we don't know what's going to happen with him necessarily. Derrick Henry, I think, is going to be good. But the point is, Darius Geis has the opportunity to be the starting running back for his team. If he's going to be the starter and he's got the upside to be a very, very good starter, you can have yourself a really, really nice pick later than what you would normally have it. He's not going to the third round in a lot of cases. So you could get yourself first, second round talent in the third round. So I completely agree with it. And you get even crazier if you get down to like Royce Freeman territory, where you're taking this guy and he could end up being the starter. So yeah, I completely agree with this. You should always know your rookies. Go in, understand what the situation is with these rookies, what kind of team they're on, what kind of situation they have to start possibly, and you might get yourself a really nice pick that the rest of your league doesn't even know about.
Very true, and I completely agree, and that's why I, like you, am a believer that this is a viable strategy, especially if you're in a league where everybody just jumps on all the big names, and regardless of position. So these guys will be there then. But yeah, I guess we got to get out of here. All right, we'll talk about more later on. But that's going to do it for us today. Please make sure you guys tune in on Friday. There's something I wanted to talk about, but we might not have the whole gang together, so I'm going to possibly have to push it. We'll see what happens. But yeah, we will be back on Friday with another show, hopefully entertaining, very informative as always. And if you guys want to interact with us, you guys feel free, comment down below. What are your thoughts on these strategies? Are there any of these strategies that you guys are implying that you believe in? Are there other ones that you've been hearing that we did not mention? Because there's just so many out there. We can't know them all, much less cover them all. So comment down below if you're on YouTube. Send a tweet to us at the FF Fanatics. Let us know your thoughts, guys. We love interacting with you. You can also follow us individually on Twitter. I'm at GPalmerFFF. Jason is at Jason Cabrera 13. That's CABRERA 13, the number 13, in case you were wondering. And yeah, we'll be back then. Any parting thoughts before we sign off, Jason?
Guys, like he said, there are tons and tons of strategies out there, and go out and mock draft them. Let us know what your mock draft looked like. Give us an example of something that you'd like us to talk about on the show. We'll gladly bring it on the show and talk about it.
Yeah, and if there's one that you're thinking about trying, let us know, and we'll give you our honest feedback on the philosophy behind it. It's what we do. We're here to help you guys. So use us. We are a resource for you. So all right, we are out of here, everyone. What was that?
I said, help us, help you.
Help us, help you, exactly. So with that, we're out of here. Everyone, take care. Have a great week. We'll see you on Friday. Bye.